Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to Around the Table Sports. So with tomorrow being the national championship, I know a lot of people have been waiting for me to drop my national championship preview video, and I've gotten done rewatching the games. I've looked at where they each lie statistically, and I think I have a pretty good understanding of going into the game, as good as I feel like you could have. So with all that being said, I can't wait to talk about this, but before we do, as always, y'all, if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're on the push to 1,000 subscribers, and we've had a lot of growth here recently, so I'd love for you to be along for the journey. If you enjoyed the video, like it, and drop a comment down below to let me know who you think is going to win the game and why. I think this is going to be a really close game, and I think it's going to be really, really intriguing. So with all that being said, let's hop straight into it. So when watching these games, a few things stand out instantaneously. I think the X factors for each team are fairly obvious, right? The X factors for Ohio State being Justin Fields, Sermon, the wide receivers they have are incredibly talented. But also an X factor that I think is being slept on, and when I say X factor, maybe not even for a positive reason, is Shaun Wade. Shaun Wade is a very talented corner, but he has been getting picked on, specifically against Clemson. They really picked on him. A lot of Trevor Lawrence's production came against him, and he was getting beat on double moves pretty consistently, and not just beat, I mean he was being put on spin cycle and would find himself on the ground. Clemson's receivers are good, but they are not near as good as Bama's receivers, and if word on the street is correct and Jalen Waddle's coming back, that's going to make it very hard to double Devontae Smith, because now you have Devontae Smith, Waddle, Mechie, Jaleel Billingsley, and Ncaa, who can act as a pass catcher out the backfield. So that's kind of where I see some of the X factors for Ohio State. Now, conversely, I think you have, on Alabama, you have Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith. If Jalen Waddle plays, Jalen Waddle. And on the defense, I think an X factor for Alabama is going to be the linebackers. The linebackers this whole year, and similar to Ohio State's Shaun Wade, both of them are very athletic. Christian Harris has actually been a bright spot in the defense. But Dylan Moses, for all of his athleticism, has found himself lost several times this year, and I think Ohio State will probably try and scheme some tight end plays coming right behind Dylan Moses, kind of hoping he continues that aggressiveness he's been showing. He keeps his eyes in the backfield for a second too long. Against a team like Ohio State, it could easily kill any momentum that Alabama is trying to build. So now that we've kind of talked about the X factors, I kind of want to break down what I saw from the games and where each team sits statistically. So I think one of the most impressive things about Ohio State coming out of that Clemson game, aside from the domination up front, the domination on the back end, was the way Ohio State was able to neutralize Travis Etienne. Now, right now, statistically, Ohio State has the number 2 rush defense in NCAA. I've seen a lot of people vying that Ohio State has the best rush defense in the NCAA, and I'm not quite ready to give it to you, and I'll explain to you why. So Georgia is currently ranked number 1, and if you look at the top 50 rush offenses in the nation, Ohio State hasn't played any of them. In fact, Georgia has actually played 3 of the top 50. So the fact that Georgia is ranked higher than Ohio State, having played teams that are better running the football, lends me to believe that Georgia is in fact a better team at stopping the run. Also, stopping ETN to that degree isn't something that we haven't seen before, right? Like, it was different when Notre Dame did it because we'd never seen him nullified like that. But we've seen ETN now be completely nullified from a game. I mean, he had 28 yards against Notre Dame. So I feel like the claim, because of the way Ohio State stopped ETN, that they're the best rush defense in the nation, is a little bit stout, and it's not backed up by the numbers because Ohio State hasn't played anybody within the top 50 rushing attacks in the nation. Georgia played 3 of them. And even then, Georgia's played 3 more games, and they've allowed the exact same amount of rushing touchdowns as Ohio State has in 7. Georgia, in 3 more games, has only allowed 2.39 rush yards per attempt to Ohio State's 3.2. In fact, Ohio State's rush defense is much closer to Alabama's than I think people give them credit. Now, Alabama's played in 12 games, so inevitably, they are going to have given up much more yards. But if you look at the numbers, Ohio State, like I just said, is giving up 3.2 yards per attempt. Alabama's giving up 3.21. They're both in the same number of touchdowns if you were to equalize the games. So I think those rush defenses are much more analogous. Now, Ohio State, on the other hand, has a top rushing attack. And look, that makes sense that Ohio State would have that with Trey Sermon being as good as he's been here recently. Here's the flip side, Ohio State, and here's where I think you feel good, and here's where you be worried. You were able to stop ETN. Like I said, that's good. Here's the bad. Notre Dame was able to stop ETN, and Notre Dame couldn't think of stopping Ncaa, right? Georgia tried to stop Ncaa, and he went off for 150 yards against the best rush defense in the nation. So that's where you have to be concerned. That's not even speaking about Devontae Smith. Remember, you're not going to be able to sell out the run when we know Shaun Wade is a liability on that back end. Devontae Smith is going to have a field day if you do sell out the run, and if Jalen Waddle's back, God help you, because I don't think there's anybody that can keep up with his speed on that back end. The flip side, Ohio State has enough firepower on offense to be able to try and match Alabama's. So here's where I think Ohio State can really affect Alabama, and I talked about it earlier. Dylan Moses has got his eyes caught in the backfield multiple times this year, and I think Ohio State will try and run some running back wheels, and we'll try and get the tight ends involved coming right behind Dylan Moses because it makes the most sense. It's been one of the areas that Alabama has absolutely been the weakest, and it's been a very consistent problem throughout this year. It was one of the first things I talked about, I think, week 1 or 2 this year. I think even in my Will Anderson video, I dropped a brief line talking about how Dylan Moses was caught looking in the backfield. At the time, it was game 1. Understandable, but now we're at the end of the season, and it's still rearing its ugly head. I think that's how Ohio State's going to go after them. Also, when you mix a linebacker who's a little bit aggressive in the eyes and a quarterback like Justin Fields who will get mobile, you can really make a defense pay. You can get Dylan Moses out of position and then pick him apart. And not just Dylan Moses. I mean, you can name your most talented linebackers in the nation, and Dylan Moses is up there. You can really affect the way they play with disciplined schemes and a quarterback who is absolutely incredible working outside the pocket, which is what Justin Fields is. That's why he was one of my X factors. Conversely, for Alabama, I think that same argument I just gave to Ohio State fans about how numbers-wise, you did stop ETN, but the Alabama rushing attack is different. Alabama, the same can be said for Ohio State. You've stopped some stout rushing attacks in like an Ole Miss. This Ohio State rushing attack is different, right? And it's going to test each defense. That's why I say I really look at the running game as an equalizer here. Ohio State's been running against people, but I'm really interested to see because they haven't been running against rush defenses that rank as high as some of the people Alabama have been running against and being successful at it. But nevertheless, the talent is there, and it's something that I think is an equalizer. We've already talked about Justin Fields being able to make plays out the pocket. I think the real difference comes down to this. Alabama's passing offense is top 5 in the nation, and Ohio State's, I believe, is sitting somewhere like 21st in the nation. If Jalen Waddle is able to come back, and Ohio State already has people not being able to play because of COVID, rumored Tyreek Smith unable to play, and Ncaa unable to play. Now, Ncaa might have a false positive. There's rumors that it is a false positive, but I've heard both that those rumors are true and that they are not true, so we're just going to have to wait and see until tomorrow. But with those 2 losses for Ohio State, it's big, not world-ending. However, it does complicate trying to stop Najee Harris when you mix in that prolific pass offense. This is the thing, Ohio State. I have no doubt that you have a talented enough front to be able to say something about Najee Harris. But you have to be able to do that for 4 quarters while your secondary tries to hold down one of the most prolific passing offenses we've ever seen in college football. And you just had corners getting shake and baked against Clemson, who's good, but their passing offense isn't what Alabama's is, and they don't have the weapons on the outside that Alabama does. All this being said, I think it's a very close game because of the problems I think Ohio State can give Alabama because Justin Fields is that guy. If I had to predict the score, I think it would be 42-35, and I do believe Alabama takes it, and I'll tell you why right here. If Jalen Waddle is able to come back healthy, and you pair him in that offense with the tight end production they've had here as of recently, with the Heisman winner and Devontae Smith, with John Mechie, with that offensive line that is prolific, you mix in the people that might not be able to play for Ohio State, and the Tyreek Smith one is big, but it's not world-ending. The Ncaa one is much more complicated because You have got to sell out to stop Ncaa. You cannot let Ncaa get going, because if Ncaa gets going, it's only going to make it easier for them to pass, and those two games are going to play off of each other. Now, the reason I think Ohio State can win this game, I know Ohio State can win the game, is because both these teams are built surprisingly similar, with just different philosophies of getting the job done. I think Ohio State has to be cognizant of Alabama sending people off the edge and trying to really keep Justin Fields in place and uncomfortable. That's going to be the game plan for Alabama, because you cannot let him get going outside the pocket. He's just too good. All that being said, I think 42-35 Alabama, simply because if the addition of Jalen Waddle comes back, the weakest part of Ohio State's defense is that secondary, and you're playing one of the most prolific passing offenses we've ever seen, and that was without a receiver of the caliber of a Jalen Waddle. Ohio State, you have incredible receivers. I trust Alabama's secondary a little bit more than I trust yours, because I watched your secondary get picked apart by Clemson when your front was absolutely dominating their front. And that's what concerns me. Even though your front won that battle, Trevor Lawrence still threw for 400 yards. That means you were winning in the upfront battle, but your corners were getting beat to such a sound degree that he was able to make plays. That's what worries me long-term for Ohio State, but like I said, their cornerbacks are incredibly talented. This is a game that I think is very, very close. It will be very close, and I think it will be incredibly entertaining. But with all that being said, y'all, drop a comment down below to let me know who you think wins this game. And if you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. That's it. See ya.